Hello. Welcome to the Storytelling That Sticks for Business and Life podcast. I'm your host and story coach, Doug Stevenson. I'm the author of the Story Theater Method and the book of the same name. And it's my hope that in these episodes, you're going to learn how to tell stories that stick, stories that make you more compelling, emotionally engaging, and interesting, while at the same time communicate an important message. My job is to help you to see how your stories can help you stand out from the crowd, to advance your career, to get paid to speak, or maybe just to give a TED Talk that goes viral. In this episode, I've invited my friend Carla Rocha of Carla Rocha Communications in Lisbon, Portugal, to come on and share her insights about storytelling as a speaker. She's a keynote speaker, as a corporate trainer, and also as a TED Talk speaker and curator. She has a unique approach to storytelling in business because she works with corporate clients. She speaks with corporate clients, and she speaks all over Portugal. So she's got a lot of experience on the platform. She's learned from experience how to choose and craft her stories and what it takes to tell a story that compels attention and causes the audience to be so silent that you could hear a pin drop. You ready to learn from Carla Rocha? Okay, let's get started. So Carla Rocha Communications in Lisbon, Portugal, my friend, my collaborator, my buddy. Welcome to the Storytelling That Sticks for Business and Life podcast. So I'd like to hear the story that we originally worked on, which led you into this career in radio and being a morning radio host. So can you share that story?
Okay, well, I'm from the Algarve, in the south of Portugal, and I started working very early in my life. And when I was about 15 years old, I was still in school, but I had this work, kind of part-time job, where I used to write for a newspaper, and a local newspaper, and I had to cover this motocross events that occasionally happened in a place called Padern. And I remember I had a new boyfriend at the time, and it was this Sunday rainy afternoon, really dark at the time, and I didn't feel like going to the event. You know, I was going to watch motorbikes just coming and going and all the noisy stuff and a lot of people there, and I didn't feel like going. And I stayed home with my boyfriend, just mingling. And at a certain point of the day, the director from the newspaper called me and asked me for the article that supposedly I had written. And I didn't have it. I didn't have it. And I didn't have the courage to tell him, I don't have it. I didn't go to the Supercross event. And when I hang up the phone, I realized I had a problem. I was, being really unresponsible. But at the same time, I had this idea. I knew that a radio station had opened near my hometown. So I pick up my bike, and I know I had to go up the hill, and my bike was a really old bike, so I had a lot of troubles getting to the top of the hill. And I remember I didn't know the place. I knocked some doors asking, can you tell me where the radio station is? I know it just opened, and people were friendly, some of them, others not that much. But eventually I found the place, and I knocked on the door, and this guy, Carlos, who was the local DJ and was doing the show at the time, he opened the door, he looked at me, he said how he saw how panicking I was. And I said, Carlos, you need to help me on this. I need to know what happened on that Supercross event because I have to write an article. Do you know who won? Do you know what happened in the race? He didn't know anything, but we started a conversation, and I was insisting, do you know anyone you can call, any of your a friend of yours who can help me with this? He didn't know anything. He didn't have a clue. But at the end of that night, I had an invitation for a casting the day after. And that's how I got into the radio business, because one day I did something really messy and that I don't recommend. I was tremendously irresponsible, but I got a career. And that's how I got into the radio. I did the casting, I stayed, and a couple of years later, I was on a national radio station talking to millions and millions of people. And that's how things happened.
One of the things that I know about you is you have a lot of courage. You have a lot of determination and drive. And that story illustrates, first of all, that you had a problem. You decided, well, I think there's a solution. I'll climb up the hill and I'll ask for help. Now, you've been telling that story, at least at the beginning, I believe, when we were working together. You used that story quite a bit in your presentations, didn't you?
Yes, I did, and I still do. Yesterday, I was at a podcast with this guy, this Portuguese guy. He's a motivational speaker, and I was telling the story. I know that his audience, it's young people, and sometimes we get, we don't have a clue of what we want. But yes, I told the story because I thought it could be, it could resonate on some people that were listening to the podcast.
Now, since we work together, you have gone on to develop your company, and you've written this book.
Oh, you
You've
have
written
it.
this book and another book. This one is the one on influence. I believe the first book was Talk Less, Communicate More, 10
That's right.
Strategies to Become a Great Communicator. And
Yes.
now Talk Less, Influence More. This one is the Influence More. And so you've written 2 books, you've created all kinds of training programs, and you are a communication specialist. And here's something that I saw on your website that I want you to comment on. You say on your website, the way we communicate should reveal our potential. It should tell the world the ideas we stand for and the projects we believe in. It should show clearly what makes us unique. Tell me a little bit more about that mission statement and why you believe communication and your passion to help people communicate better with speeches, with podcasts, with stories, whatever. Why is that such a passion of yours?
Because I feel that we still especially in the corporate world, we still have a lot of data and facts. And one of the things that I can say that happens with me a lot is I go to, let's say, a bank to train a speaker, someone from the executive committee who is doing a presentation. And I can see that the presentation has a structure and everything is well, data is there, it has a sequence, it's logical. But at the end of the first round we do for the script, in the script, I feel that the person is missing. There's no way the person can be there. All of the script can be presented by someone else.
Right.
And you cannot imagine how many times people look at me with a weird expression, just saying, how come I'm missing? Okay, this is my message. This is what I need to convey. And my job is to show that they're losing opportunities to influence, to establish a connection with their audiences. And that's a lot. So I struggle with this every single day. And yeah, my company has 9 years. When I started 9 years ago, and I still feel that sometimes I get the same objections and the same arguments not to go into. I'm not talking yet about storytelling. I'm not talking yet. I need to, conquer. I need to establish confidence. I need to make people like me and believe me before I get to tell your story. And I believe you can feel that as well. But I'm talking about this first stage of, okay, we're not telling stories yet, but you're still missing in your presentation, in your script. How can you add some humanity, something that it's human to all of that data and information? And if we get this done well, Okay, it's fine. It's a big change. And then we can, go further and maybe stage 2, stage 3, and get into storytelling and show people especially in corporate world and in leadership positions, what they are missing when they don't tell their stories.
Well, I think what's missing is people's understanding of their uniqueness and how to communicate their uniqueness with metaphors, with stories, with their personality. I think people, especially in corporate, as they move up in leadership to higher and higher levels, instead of revealing more of themselves and being more human and more inspiring, they at least when they get to the front of the room, they become less of themselves when they should be expanding and being more powerful and more colorful. They become less powerful and less colorful. They pull in rather than pushing out. And so story is one form. So let's kind of jump forward to story here in terms of when you eventually get them to start understanding you're a unique human being and your uniqueness, your specialness is not coming forward. Yes, I'm getting your content and your ideas, but they're not coming through your personality. How does story help people in all levels, corporate or not, middle management, inside, outside, corporate or not? How does it help you and how does it help other people become more human?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I studied on the radio, yeah, it was amazing that I got this chance. But I remember that in my first radio shows, the only thing I was doing was presenting the songs, let's say. So now I'm playing Shania Twain, or I would say how the traffic was, the weather, and that was it. And I had this director from Kiss FM London, Paul Buick. One day he calls me to his office, and we have this process on the radio. We call it hair checking. And it means we need to hear the show with our director giving us feedback for what we done well and what went not so well. And I heard that tape he had been recording in the morning, and he was pointing, see, you could have told about yourself here. You could have introduced some kind of thought that you're having here, but it was always only facts and how's the weather and the song that it's playing and the traffic, and there was none of me. And I realized for him that what was missing were stories. And I studied little, okay, I studied little, telling little stories. Maybe I'm not sure they were stories, they were thoughts, or maybe regrets, or something that I was feeling at the time. And it was amazing to see how people would stick to that and not to the weather or the traffic or anything that was more factual, the news, but to little things that we speakers on the radio which would share with each other and with the audience, that would connect us. That was when the phone would ring.
But it's the connection that is what's important. And I believe that one of the things that I saw on your website is you talk about imagery and emotion and the importance of imagery and emotion. And one of my, phrases that I think you've taken into your heart as well is emotion is the fast lane to the brain. So talk to me a little bit about how storytelling has evolved to be a specific course that you teach. And when you're teaching this course, what are some of the things, the principal ideas and concepts that you share with people to get them to believe that they have stories to tell and you can help them to figure out how to tell them?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm glad you asked that, because again, I work in the corporate world, and sometimes I go to a bank and I have this program called storytelling for leaders, and we get there, and the purpose is that by the end of the day they have at least three stories. Maybe they're in the beginning, maybe they will need to write it after the session, but three ideas and three beginning of stories that they can tell in the professional contest. And it's like therapy. So one of the things I say is, it's okay. You come to this session and I want you to forget everything about the bank, the clients, and just come here and brainstorm with me and with all of us about your life. Imagine your life, how you've been living. Where are the moments where you've struggled and you've seen things one way and then something happened and you started to see in a different way? Where are those turning points? And it's amazing to see how at the end of the day, and this is a 2-day training for a bank here in Portugal, at the end of the first day, there is a connection between them because they have, started to tell their stories. Well, maybe not crafted like they would be at the end, and maybe we would need some more sessions, but they started to test how the effect that it has when you tell your story and when you listen someone telling their stories as well. And it's all about vulnerability. It's all about revealing our uniqueness, revealing moments that are so important to our character. They have made us stronger. So it's this effect that stories have on people. And I try the method to be as simple as it can be. I know there's a lot of approaches. I try them to follow a sequence. First, they start to look at their life, maybe families, their business eventually, and find those moments, and then choosing. And there's a phrase that you use a lot, that is pick one, pick one. I remember you said pick a date when I was, trying to do the transition to my company. And I say, you have to pick one, just pick one. A lot of things go through our minds, a lot of events and small disasters, as you say, but just pick one and try to transform that into a story. And we start and we move from there, and we find incredible stories, and they're still with me a long time after the training program has ended. They stick in my head and in my heart.
Well, that's what stories do. Stories stick.
Yeah.
And they stick because of the imagery and the emotion and the simplicity of story. At its highest level of mastery, you and I know, as practitioners of storytelling, we will choose a story that we want to tell, but we'll sit down and take some time to craft it and think about it. And what do I want to use this for? And what's the lesson? But it's at its most basic form, the simplicity of just sharing a moment from your life that meant something, and the transition from before to after, when I was stuck and then I was unstuck, or I didn't understand something and then I did understand something. The simplicity of that makes such a deep human connection. And I think that's what you see in that transformation. And it's such a gift for you to be able to just guide people forward through that. It is such a gift, that something that we get to do with people is help them to realize you don't have to have some big, gigantic, amazing story. How do stories help you in your keynotes to make a connection with an audience? You step on stage, they don't know who you are. You have to win them over. Do you tell stories? How many stories? How long are the stories? Just kind of give me a general overview of your approach to keynoting and storytelling.
Yeah, I always I like to prepare my keynote. I like to start with the main information. What am I going to share with them? What do I think that they will benefit in knowing? And I have my points. Okay, I need to talk about how can we listen to people, how humanity, most of us are alcoholics, how we talk more than we should. Okay, that's one point. And then I can move and have something else about general communication and another point. So I have 3 blocks of information, and I look at that and I think, okay, what stories am I going to tell in a way that I can underline that idea? And I have some stories that I tell in a regular basis my grandmother's story. My grandmother, she was married when she was 70 with her first boyfriend. So that's a love story. They got together in the end of their lives and they were really happy. And she used to tell me when he died that those 12 years were the most happiest years of her life. And I tell that story to reinforce that sometimes we are in our 40s or 30s or 50s and, finding obstacles not to do this or that because it's not the time. And my grandmother just taught me this lesson. So every time I tell that story, sometimes I have people saying, well, I got really emotional because I remember my grandmother as well, or yeah, there's things that I haven't done in my life because I was, blocking myself. And yes, my process is that I need to find stories where I need to feel comfortable in telling them. And I try to know the audience before, but I never know. I may, have those thoughts of, oh, I have my grandmother's story here. Maybe it's not the right moment. But I try to take those thoughts out of my mind and I jump. I jump into the storytelling, but I make sure, and I know you say that storytelling is like bungee jumping. You cannot imagine how many times I remember that. Because it is. I'm so afraid of going into the story, but I know that there is a moment that I
Jump.
can't go back. I jump.
You just
And
jump.
yeah, I just jump. But I know that those are the moments where I can feel the silence in the room, where I can feel that, oh my God, they're really listening. And sometimes I'm telling the story and I have this moment where, oh my God, everyone is paying attention. Oh my God. And I feel like I'm getting lost because I had that impact on me. But it's, you get used to it and you get to enjoy every time a bit more and you start to getting comfortable with that and enjoying the moment instead of, just being nervous about it and feeling
Yeah.
sure.
One of the signs in my story theater retreat was get out of your own way. And one of the things that I think it's kind of counterintuitive is that the more impactful you are, the more connected you are to the audience, the deeper the silence. Because in that silence, they are processing their own relationship to your story and their own relationship to the people in their lives. They're thinking about their grandma or their life or their goals or their whatever. And you need to lean into that silence, to just lean into it and to know that this is golden. This is beautiful. The opposite is like, oh my God, they're so silent. I've lost them. It's like, no, it's just the opposite. If they're chatting away and on their phones, you've lost them. If they're absolutely dead silent, quiet, what we say here in the United States, you could hear a pin drop.
Yeah.
That's good, but that means you've connected. And is the story 100% word for word replicable and perfect? It doesn't have to be. What has to be perfect is your connection to the story. Now, are you more comfortable with your story and the depth of your story and your emotion now than you were years ago? Do you think it evolves and you get more and more brave?
Yes, but I also feel that if for a long period of time, I don't tell stories, I may feel that when I tell them, I may have to prepare more to have more confidence because I feel maybe it's like driving. If I'm not driving for too long, I lose my practice and I need to get back in. Okay, what's the story? Okay, I need to tell the story again and see how it sounds, and I need to rehearse and I need to feel confident with that. So I need that. Yes, I'm more comfortable emotionally than I was, um, but it's always a process that I need to start from the beginning, I believe. In a good way. Okay, it's not, I'm so comfortable now that I don't need to think about anything. I just go on stage. I'll never be that person. I will feel that I
Well,
need to.
because you care.
Yeah, I care and I'm scared to fail.
Well, you're invested in delivering on the promise of what they're expecting. You're invested in that. You feel responsible to deliver something great to them. And there's this challenge that we face as speakers, this part of us that says, boy, they've set the bar really high for me. They're hired me. They're going to put me in front of 1,000 people. They're paying me all this money. They're flying me in, all that, da, 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 da. And all these expectations start to get way the heck up here. And inside our little old insecurity starts to rise up going, well, how do I live up to that? I'm standing in front of 1,000 people. Who am I? I'm just a guy. I'm just this
Yeah.
person. How can I, and we have to fight back and forth against that to just lower the expectation of ourselves, I believe, to just accept I'm enough. My stories are enough.
I just feel that sometimes you need to have maturity to tell your story. You need to be ready, and maybe it's an internal process. And sometimes I feel I may back down a bit and not try to have the story no matter what. And you need to have that distance if it's a strong emotional story, a crucial story. Um, and then tell it, but tell it in a way that, yeah, you still feel it and live that, and you need to um, to 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 take the audience with you, but you need to, I believe you need to heal a part of, there's a healing process that has to happen before you tell the story, in order to tell it with everything that the story should have, and in order to make the audience react in a positive way, feeling that connection, but not feeling sorry for you
Yeah,
because you
that's
have.
an interesting element, isn't it? People feel like, well, I don't want people to feel sorry for me because I had this issue or this problem or this challenge in my life. It's like, if it's done correctly, they don't feel sorry for you. They feel aligned with you. They feel connected with you because your story is my story.
Mhm.
Have you, in your evolution, because you've been doing this for quite a long time now, and you've been in front of so many audiences, and you've come up against, I'm sure in your workshops, some resistance to telling stories. Do you use a story of your own resistance to telling stories to help them understand that it's fine to be resistant to story, but at the end of the day, the story will work? Do you tell a story about yourself, being afraid to tell a story so that they can go, oh, well, if she was afraid, well, then I understand that my fear is okay. And now we can all move forward.
Yes, I tell my story. I tell the story that I told about the radio station. I was, in my early days on the radio, I wouldn't tell stories at all. But I tell especially stories from other people I have been coaching and training, and how they were, feeling some resistance, and eventually how great the story became. And I give the example. And now they tell stories to the team. I don't say names or companies, but I say, well, there's this commercial director from a bank. She needed to convey this message, and the story was about blah, blah, blah. And 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 they begin to realize that they're one of us. If they did that, maybe I can do. So yes, I try the various approaches to take people to believe that stories really really work. And I tend to say as well that it's okay to start small. It's okay to start with a thought, a reflection, maybe a conversation I had on the hall with a friend. Maybe I can, incorporate that into my meeting, my presentation, and then we'll move from there. But it's okay to start small. Because I believe that a lot of people believe that you need to be an actor, or you need to be like you were, or you need to be, really an extrovert to tell a story. And it's not true. So I take a lot of time and effort to create this this state where the people are comfortable in the room to start enjoying and testing the process. So it takes me a while to get the mood in the room so that people can start to share. And eventually, at the end of the day, we'll have great stories. But you need to start small, and you know how you need to, you know, set the scene and set the right mood for everything that will happen in a session like this. It's really it's therapy, you know, it's therapy. It heals.
Stories truly are therapy. And I like what you're saying, because for a lot of people listening, I want you to hear how Carla is talking about creating safety. Before we can lead them forward, they need to feel safe. They need to trust us. One of the ways we can create safety and trust is by going first. Leaders have to go first, and that means you have to share something from yourself that aligns with where they're at. So if they're afraid, you need to tell a story about when you were afraid, so that they can feel that, well, she understands my feeling, my sense of insecurity right now. And so I think I can trust that she can lead me forward because she gets me. And so we have to make that connection wherever we think they're at, whatever we anticipate that their fear or their block is going to be. Our story of being in a similar place can help them move forward, because you and I didn't start out being amazing storytellers. We didn't start out being amazing communicators. We had to learn it along the way. Your story of being on the radio and trying to just do the facts and then learning that doesn't work. My director is actually saying, where's Carla? Where's
Yeah.
Carla? Carla isn't showing up there. And then you tell me a story about an executive and you're saying, but where are you? You're not in your story. So the parallel, you connect your story to an executive where he's not showing up, and you go, well, I didn't show up on the radio and I wasn't there. I was sitting in the chair, but I wasn't there. Oh, now I get what you're talking about. I'm talking, but I'm not really there. I'm not showing up. Now, what are some of the elements that you think we've both learned about story that, for someone listening to this podcast about storytelling that sticks, what is it in your estimation, in your opinion, that makes a story stick?
Details. I think imagery, like you said, and you do it in a way. I was recalling the story from the airplane, the story of the limo.
Look
And
for
the
the
first
limo
time,
story.
look for the limo story. You were in the plane trying to get out and try to be on time for your keynote speech. And we are there in the plane with you. We are there almost carrying the bag and making sure that you get there on time. And it's the detail, it's how you describe, but in a way it's a balance between what it's too much and what is, you know, amazing, and the gap and the tiny difference between, wow, this is amazing, until, oh, I'm fed up, this is too much detail. It's really it's obscure. You need to do it, and do it a lot, in order to know how to do it and how to feel if it's too much. I feel I have a lot to learn. I'm not there yet. So I love to hear when someone like you, Doug, do it in a brilliant way. Because I think maybe it's a gift, but I believe that it takes a lot of work and a lot of effort. But having said that, we don't have to be at this point, like a 5-star level, to tell our stories. We can still be great on stage, on a meeting, with our family, on the dinner table, and sharing. And what I've learned with this process is, no matter what's your level of expertise, what's your level of, you know, greatness, just tell the story. That's rule number one. Just tell your stories. Look at the world in different perspectives and tell me how you seeing that, in a way that I can understand, and in a way that I can, with that description, with that story, I can see how you see the world.
I think it goes back to what we said earlier, is when you have a story in mind and you've taken some time to think about it, maybe you've scripted it a little bit or whatever and thought about, what do I want to use it for? What's the lesson? When it comes time to tell the story, you jump. You just go into the story and you just tell it. And you cannot hesitate. You cannot do anything half-baked about it. You have to be brave. You have to be courageous and willing to share yourself. And I think I've gotten braver over the years, because I know in the beginning I was like so scared in front of audiences. I was just so afraid. And over the years, I got more and more brave and more courageous, to the point where I stopped worrying about what they think of me while I'm speaking and while I'm telling a story. And I'm more committed to, let me get this story right. Let me be in the story. Let me tell my truth. And when I am more committed to me staying grounded in what I'm trying to do than what are they thinking of me, I do a better job.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to, like you said, it's kind of like bungee jumping. You don't kind of tell a story. You tell a story. You just do it. And you trust that I have chosen this story for this reason. It makes this point, teaches this lesson. I'm just going to do it and we'll see what happens. You can't be attached to the outcome while you're
Yeah,
telling a story, can you?
yeah, you can. And I had to do this change of mindset from me and how do I look, how do I sound, how am I telling the story, to the audience, people who are in front of me, what am I giving to them?
Well, I think the thing that propels us forward as speakers and as storytellers is this sense of compassion and duty to serve our audiences and to give them this gift of this lesson. And so when I'm crafting a story, I'm thinking about, what did I learn from this moment in my life? What was that all about? That's what I mean about investigating my life, investigating the moments. And what was that? What did I learn from that? And is that only a lesson for me? Do I really think I'm so special that I'm the only one who had a challenge like that? I'm the only one? No, everybody's had challenges like I've had. The difference is I'm going to put a lesson on it. I'm going to look at, well, what did I do? How did I overcome that? How did I move forward? And I'm going to share that so that someone in their life is going to be sitting in their car having a moment like I had, and they're going to go, oh yeah, that's right. I need to pick a date.
Yeah.
Oh, I need to look for the limo.
Yeah, look
Oh,
for
I need to
them.
get out of the bus. And those phrases that pays are going to stick with them, because the story draws them in. In my opinion, the story draws them in. Like you say, it is so silent out there. It's like, well, that silence means they're in it. They're
Yeah.
with you. And you're going to hold on to them and you're going to draw them forward. But the question that I believe they have at the end of the day is, and so what's the point? So now I'm going to ask you about your phrase that pays. I'm sure you've been doing this for quite a while now. I'm sure you've evolved a number of phrase that pays. Do you have some phrase that pays you can share with us that you use, that you used to teach?
I remember that the story from the radio where I used to knock on the door to find the radio station. I use it like an analogy, to in a company, a big conference, where the main message was we need to collaborate. So the message was knock on doors, see who's next to you, and knock on the door, ask for help. And yes,
Brilliant.
I can.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, because it has this image of collaboration and hospitality and asking for help, and it's okay to look who's next to us, and maybe we can work in a more profound way. Than we need, environments where we need to collaborate. And so that was the phrase that pays.
People need a simple message like knock on the door. Now, do I remember that when you went up to that radio station, the door was red?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think I Yeah, I think the door was red.
That's the power of the imagery and emotion and the detail that you talk about in the story, because the first time I heard that story was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
12 years ago. It's a long time ago, but I still remember. And I see you climbing up the hill with your bike. And I see you asking people, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? And finding your way up there. And there's this little building with a red door, and you knock on the door. It's like, I remember all of those details and that imagery, even though that was forever ago. And that's the stuff that sticks. The imagery, the emotion, the detail, that's what sticks.
One of the things that I feel sometimes is that people tend to think that, okay, it should be natural. So I'm going there and I tell the story, and what comes, and that should be okay. But you need some, mastery. You need dedication in order to be, really compelling.
So the last question has to do with TED Talks and being the curator and helping choose the speakers for TED. When you are part of that team that is choosing the speakers, what are some of the things that make one speaker stand out from another that causes you to say, okay, you're on the program?
Yeah. I believe it's authenticity. When you see them on video, if they are scripted and rigid, or they are trying to show the best of them and revealing who they are. I believe that people need to be secure again, and they need to feel comfortable in order to, okay, I have thousands of people, but I need to remember that at the end of the day, I'm having a conversation about something that I feel, that I've learned, that I've known, and I feel that they can, have something in return as well. I've learned this, and I've grown, and I believe that sharing with everyone what I've learned will have a positive impact.
Yeah, what I'm hearing from you is that a story is an intimate conversation. And that's that's kind of the criteria you're looking for. Does this feel like a conversation, an intimate conversation where they're revealing something about themselves in service of me, with the compassion and the care and the concern to share something, to give me a gift. And it's the gift of themselves, but it's the gift of a message that can help me in my life. Well, it's been such a pleasure to connect with you once again, Carla, my dear, my friend.
Thank you, Doug.
I am happy to see you, and I wish you all the best in the world as you continue to inspire people in Portugal and beyond.
Thank you, Doug, and thank you and congratulations. I have been listening to your podcasts, and as I wrote on the review, it's a privilege to learn from you. So I hope that everyone have this same feeling that I have every time that I'm with you. So thank you so much for this.
Thank you. All right, well, that's it for this episode. If you feel that you learned something valuable today, something that you can use that will make your stories stick, stories that make you and your business memorable, marketable, and monetizable, there are 3 things I'd like you to do. First, click on the follow or subscribe button and leave a review wherever you listen. And second, share this podcast with your friends and coworkers, your email list, and on social media. And third, connect with me on LinkedIn. And when you're ready to get serious about taking your stories to the next level, or if you have an important speech, presentation, or TED Talk coming up, or if you want some guidance on how to make the transition to becoming a professional speaker, let's schedule your free 30-minute coaching session where we can get to know each other and see if we're a good fit. And as always, I'd love to hear from you with your questions and comments. Let me know that you're out there listening and learning. You can send an email with your questions, comments, and suggestions to Deborah@DougStevenson.com. That's Deborah, DEBORAH, @DougStevenson.com. Hey, thanks for listening. Until the next episode, I'm Doug Stevenson.